Hey, what's up, everybody? Fred Minnick here, and today I am going to review the latest decanter to come from Heaven Hill for the old Fitzgerald line. The Heaven Hill Bottled and Bond 8-year. This was distilled in the fall of 2015 and, of course, bottled this fall. Now, if you were catching my review last week, with the Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, I did say this would be my last review of the year then. Unfortunately, I've gotten a lot of samples since then. So my hope was that I would have my top 100, like the unranked list, concluded by today. But I do not, because I have more samples to go through. But I assure you that today is the last day I am tasting outside of this. I should take that back. I have 2 more tastings that I'm doing today, and those are exclusive for my Club Marzipan members. If you want to check out Club Marzipan, there's a link in the description. But anyway, I got these samples in. I was like, I couldn't in good conscience create a list of the top 100 American whiskeys this year without tasting what it was sent to me, because they were A-listers. I also just tasted Little Book, loved it, love this year's Little Book. And I tasted Booker's 23-4. I don't even remember what they called it. That was also very good. But the Little Book was exceptional. Best Little Book I've had. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to go ahead and crack this one open here. Pour it. Now, this Decanter series is one of the more excitable products coming out of Heaven Hill right now, I guess. This beautiful bottle. There's been a lot of really good ones. There's been some bad ones too, and I mean bad. I don't mean just didn't hit the mark. I mean, there was one that I was just like, oh my god, this is like got cork taint on it or something. God, I wish I could remember which one that was. It wasn't the ones last year. Last year's were pretty good. Okay, so the nose smells like sweet feed. So I had horses growing up, and we used to always feed them sweet feed, which was basically molasses, oats and corn covered in molasses. You know, the cheaper you went, the lesser the grain and the thicker the molasses, I feel like. But you would open that bag and you could just smell all of this like sweet feed. So it has that very unique smell that I can't think of another way to describe this particular nose, and that's sweet feed. A little touch of earthiness there too. Kind of corn forward. You know, this is not, when we look at something that is on the allocated limited edition line, that's got some age to it. I mean, 8 years old is an incredible range. So yeah, that's very corn forward. I'm gonna just make sure that's not like a bad glass. I'm gonna pour another one. I will tell you that it is cold in my office right now. So sometimes when it's like super cold outside, that can have a chilling effect on the flavor profile. I normally sip whiskey in like room temperature. It is by no means room temperature in here. My legs are cold, my feet are cold. And it's not that the heater isn't working or anything like that. It's that I've got like a kind of an office that's got glass windows over here. It's small, and I don't like it to get too hot. And if I crank the heater up, it's not good for the bottles in here. So it's about 58 to 64 degrees in here, depending on which room you're in. So not super duper cold, but cold enough that I think it could have a little bit of an effect on the whiskey. One other thing I want to point out, this has been coming up in a lot of the questions here lately, is why don't I add water when I do these reviews? So I am a critic, right? So I do this professionally. This isn't like a hobby for me. Like people People book me for private tastings to sip with bourbon with me. I mean, I've been booked from everyone from Google and PNC Bank to Gatorade, Amazon. I mean, I've been booked by a lot of major private companies, publicly traded companies, to be their entertainment. And so I've been doing this for a long time. I mean, I own a spirits competition. I've written books. Like, this is not a hobby for me. So I believe in tasting the bourbon as it is bottled for critical review. When I'm at home, when I am at a baseball game or a play or something like that, will I add water? Will I add ice? Absolutely. Those are not critical review scenarios. So what you're doing at home, just enjoying yourselves, that's completely different than doing a critical analysis of something. And as I'm warming the glass up, I'm literally warming the glass up here to make sure that it's not too cold. I used to do that with Chardonnay as well when I used to review wine. Anyway, my point is that I want to taste it as it is bottled. I do not add water to it because that can how much water I add cannot be perfectly duplicated by you at home. And I also believe in like taking the food critics' advice when I've asked for their advice on this. A food critic once told me, like, when I'm doing food reviews, I don't add salt and pepper. I judge the chef based on the food that is presented to me, and that's it. And if you add salt and pepper, you are altering the presentation of the food. So I have taken my stance on adding water in a professional review setting as adding salt and pepper to as a food critic would to salt and pepper. So I don't add anything. I review it as it is bottled, and that is that. So let's go ahead and get back to it. I threw out that last glass because I felt it was too cold, and I thought, the edge of the glass just had a little bit of a smell to it. So maybe it didn't dry all the way. Maybe some soap got caked in there or something. I don't know. So I'm just giving this one the benefit of the doubt. This very rarely happens, but I think I'm a little bit more sensitive to, making sure, it's just right because it's so cold in here. Okay. The sweet feed nose is still there. That part has not changed whatsoever. The glass, me cupping it like that definitely did. I can tell, like, at least with the glass, the surface of it's not as cold. But that sweet feed nose is still there. I will say that there's probably just a touch of caramel here now, whereas before I did not smell it. Okay. Very different. Very, very different. There is, in fact, no corn forward notes, but this could be a fun experimentation for you at home. Put a bottle in the freezer and taste it as it's coming right out of the freezer, and when you've got it nice and chilled, and then taste it when it's warmed up quite a bit. Completely different bourbon on the palate. Absolutely 180. All right, so it's not corn forward now. Now it's vanilla. Now it's caramel. Some molasses is here. I get like this, like a blueberry muffin as well. But it's not nothing. Nothing on the palate is just like, dominant. It's like all these notes are kind of boom, 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 boom. They're right here. Nothing is like overly taking over my palate. That's actually a good thing. So that means it's balanced. So this is a very balanced bourbon. And in terms of like where I feel it on my tongue, I feel it in the back, middle, front, and every tongue is different. How everyone perceives taste is different on their tongue. But I'm always very aware of my tongue and how it is feeling things. And gotta say, this one's covering a lot of bases. It is not going underneath the jawline or tickling the roof of my palate, but it is on the majority of my tongue. And like I said, there's not one dominant note here. There's several of them coming in all at once. If I were to say two dominant notes, I'd probably say vanilla and blueberry muffin. Okay, so I'm going to taste this one more time to kind of evaluate the finish. Pretty medium to long finish. It's still pretty aggressive on my tongue. The flavor of blueberry muffin seems to be rising up, no pun intended, a little bit more. And I guess just sign me up for blueberry muffins. Like a nice warm blueberry muffin. Put a little butter on that. Have a cup of coffee with it. Woo! If that's wrong, I don't want to know what's right. Ah, man, that's good. Where does this rank in my top 100? Is it going to make it? I don't know. It might, and it might not. I don't know. I don't know if it's a shoe in. But I think it's definitely in that like that first. It's either in that like last 30 or 40 in, or first 10 out. So that's kind of where I feel about it. Whereas that little book I mentioned earlier, that's a shoe in. That's on that list. That little book just really blew my mind. And I apologize for those who wanted to see an old Fitzgerald review, and I'm just bragging about Little Book. But hey, these are the times we live in. Thanks for tuning in. Be safe out there. Hit that subscribe button if you're not a subscriber already. If you want to check out my Club Marzipan, you can learn more about it in the description. That's going to do it, folks. Be safe out there. Remember, vodka sucks unless it's being used to clean up the murder scene of a dead cat. Cheers.